Hey, welcome to the Virtually Speaking podcast. My name is Pete Fletcher, and joining me as always is my good friend, Mr. John Nicholson. John, how you doing, man?
Good. I think I've had enough coffee for the day, and I'm ready to find out what's new, what's going on.
You're coffeeed up and ready, as Sanjay once said famously.
You know, we're gonna launch this somewhere.
No, listen, I'm excited. Speaking of launch, obviously big GA this week at VMware by Broadcom. With VCF and vSphere Foundation 5.2. Lots of announcements this week, and I want to talk this week about one of those, which is vSphere Foundation. So we're going to bring on a few experts to join this conversation, starting with our good friend, Mr. Himanshu Singh. Himanshu, welcome back to Virtually Speaking.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. I saw some of your blogs out there. I saw some of the content you guys have been doing. So I'm looking forward to picking your brain a little bit. You're not alone. You're bringing on one of the technical experts in vSphere, our good friend, Mr. Harshad. Harshad, how you doing, sir?
I'm very good. Thank you. I'm also coffeeed up.
You're coffeed up as well. Nice. Yeah, little known fact, John. Not sure if you know this, but Harshad is actually my neighbor in Raleigh. So we're Team Raleigh.
Awesome. Good thing, Raleigh.
Yeah. Hey, let's not talk about Raleigh so much as talking about vSphere Foundation 5.2, which recently came out. Himanshu, I would love to start with you, and maybe before we dive into any of the new features and sort of what's happening with 5.2, maybe we can level set. And for folks at home that might not be aware of what, everybody knows vSphere. And I know vSphere just came out with a new version, 8. What is it? 8. Which version are we at now?
8 update 3.
Update 3, correct. Yeah. So what is vSphere Foundation?
All right. Yeah. So vSphere Foundation is the new kind of top end edition of vSphere. We introduced this in December 2023 timeframe. The fundamental thing that I want people to think about vSphere Foundation is that it's the solution that helps optimize your IT, right? So you might have an existing kind of vSphere-based environment that you're running. What we do with vSphere Foundation is that we add on some of the ops management, log analytics, and machine learning capabilities on top of that, in order to get you a lot more out of your existing investments, in order to give you a lot more of the higher-end ops management capabilities, just so that you can really optimize your IT infrastructure across the board and be able to run a much more efficient environment overall, right? So if you think about vSphere Foundation, with this kind of 4 key areas that we really focus on when it comes to delivering capabilities, right? The first one is around operational efficiency, right? As I kind of alluded to in the initial comments, it talks about kind of operational efficiency as kind of the one big area, right? And I talked about that. The other one is around being able to help with the lines of business, developers, DevOps teams, etc., really innovate when it comes to serving their end users, and for IT to become an enabler for those in this case. And some of the key things that we do there is around being able to provide those teams, those devs and DevOps teams, self-service access to infrastructure resources, so that it's easy for them to be able to then leverage those resources and then focus on application logic and not be bogged down by IT tickets, for example, or resource provisioning queues and all that kind of stuff, right? Another big area is around workload performance and how kind of the latest capabilities from vSphere Foundation deliver the kind of performance that your modern workloads really need. A lot of customers now have hardware accelerators like GPUs and DPUs. So DPUs being data processing units, GPUs being graphics processing units, right? And on top of their kind of existing CPU-based architecture. And so these are becoming very popular. And so what vSphere has done, or vSphere Foundation has done, basically is to bring all these 3, CPU, GPU, DPU in that fold, so that now you can leverage individual processing units for the right kind of workloads, the right kind of processes that they need to focus on. And that really helps in terms of overall increasing the kind of performance that you get out of your infrastructure, especially if you're starting to think about running newer modern workloads, or any kind of like AI workloads, for example, whether it is traditional AI workloads or some of the newer generative AI type of workloads as well. And then the last one I want to highlight is security, because that's always kind of the big one, right? And if you think about more so nowadays, security has become an extremely critical piece in terms of any kind of IT infrastructure, right? And so with vSphere Foundation, the idea is we deliver this secure by default environment that thinks of every feature as being a security feature. You got to make sure that security is enabled across your entire environment in a very inbuilt kind of way. And then this capabilities that we talk about, whether it is data encryption both at rest and in motion, multi-factor authentication, being able to support third-party identity providers, for example. So it's security, but also making security easy for you, right? And be able to work with what customer choices have. So we've really been listening to a lot of customer feedback on the kind of things that are able to help them make things easier, make things more secure, make things more efficient, and that's what vSphere Foundation is all about.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, and I know you've written several blogs, especially recently, and the landing page for most blogs around here, and as it pertains to vSphere and VMware Cloud Foundation, is below here, blogs.vmware.com Cloud Foundation. And I want to get into some of the details there about what some of these changes are. But before we do that, I want to touch on what you just said around this is a response to what customers have been asking, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that. It makes sense that VMware is pushing this entire private cloud solution, VMware Cloud Foundation, but it also makes sense that not everybody is gonna go that route, and that there are a lot of customers that are looking to have more than just naked vSphere, if you will, and take advantage of some of these other applications. And I feel like this is a sweet spot for vSphere Foundation. So is this something that you're hearing from customers?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the idea as you kind of laid out, right? So, of course, we've got the full stack private cloud offering with VMware Cloud Foundation, and we'd love for customers to adopt that. But at the same time, for customers with, for example, more smaller environments, they are probably looking for very specific kind of needs, which does not involve kind of a full private cloud deployment. And this is exactly where vSphere Foundation shines, because you can take your existing kind of vSphere based environment, take it to that next level in terms of efficiency, optimization, etc. And then as your use cases evolve, you can definitely graduate onto VMware Cloud Foundation kind of over time. But the idea of that massive simplification of the VMware portfolio that we did maybe 6+ months ago, it stems from that. So we are offering customers a simplified portfolio, two kind of main offerings. Well, there's a couple of other kind of lower end to vSphere editions as well, vSphere Standard, vSphere Essentials Plus. But for most customers, I would imagine between vSphere Foundation, they'll serve their needs. At the same time, one of the other things that we did was we did not want to make vSphere Foundation as a big solution with lots of components in it, because we wanted to really focus on a specific need. But we know that customers do have use cases and needs that go on top of it that may not really require them to go all the way to VCF, which is why we have these add-ons capabilities available to them as well on top of VMware vSphere Foundation. So I'll call out a couple of them. One is, if customers are looking at, and this is very, very common today, it's a super hot topic, lots of customer inquiries on this, around disaster recovery capabilities, ransomware recovery capabilities, and that's where the VMware Live Recovery (VLR) solution is available as an add-on on top of VCF as well as VVF. And then the other one is in vSphere Foundation, we have a kind of a sprinkling of vSAN included that you can really try out. It's like a POC kind of thing. You can dip your buttons for you to go to like a hyperconverged infrastructure solution. You can actually add on vSAN on top of VVF very easily, and then basically go that route, right? So a lot of our customers are interested in having an HCI solution, and having an optimized HCI solution through vSphere Foundation plus vSAN makes a ton of sense for a lot of customers.
I was just going to say, I really like the optimization story, because I feel like there's a lot of customers right now that are on a hardware refresh cycle. And they're reevaluating the licensing changes. In some cases, they may have been on some old socket system, and they're looking at cores, and they're being like, well, how many do I need? Things like that. And from a hardware basis, maybe they're on Cascade Lake and they're starting to hit kind of the end of the life cycle run of those. They're hitting 5 years, or maybe worse, they're on something even older. They've got some ancient Broadwell. And having the tooling, it's great to have DRS. It's great to have the existing efficiencies that they may have already had with their existing Enterprise Plus footprint. But as you're moving to this new hardware, you're looking at, figuring out which subscription, how much you need, being able to stand up that operations suite and make sure you're right-sized everything, look at your utilization, also try to model that and recognize, if you're hopping 3-4 generations of CPUs, those are gonna punch a bit harder. The RAM densities on these new hosts are a lot better. I've worked with some customers who they had, 3 blade chassis, and they're like, oh, this is a lot to license. And I'm like, well, let's model this. Let's look at efficiencies. Let's look at those allocations. Not just the workload placement capabilities of DRS, but look at the operations. Maybe spin up the log insight capabilities and actually look at the ability to actually figure out maybe something's broken. Like, why does this one VM running 100% all the time? Oh, it's got problems. So going through and tuning that as part of your hardware refresh cycle. I know some people look at a hardware refresh as an opportunity to let's just buy like for like, license it the same and move on. But instead, let's actually optimize. Let's look at this, and it's great to go ahead and get this tooling out there now, as people are going through this cycle, rather than them try to look at it and as a two prong. I encourage people to look at it as a single process, I guess.
And that's a very, very important point. I think having to thinking about hardware refresh and not as a like for like, but be able to think about, okay, well, if my hardware refresh cycle is 3, 5, or more years, I need to make sure that the hardware that's going to come in is going to be able to meet my needs for the next few years, and then the software layer I'm basically adding on top is able to really get the most out of that hardware, right? With all the denser CPUs coming in now, but people, if as you said,
96 cores, RAR.
yeah, 128, right? So and so there's all these things. So the point is, you got to be able to have the management layer that is able to get squeeze the most out of it, so that you're not ending up with 100% utilization on something, and then the workload is not getting the resources it needs. So you want to be able to manage your capacity, et cetera, all at the same time. The good thing is that especially as we bring in some of this ops capability with the ML kind of built in, there's a lot of predictive analytics that comes in. So you're able to get insights and updates and alerts for stuff that could fail in the future. So you can actually look at that and address things, and versus having to basically be always reactive to say, oh, this is broken, I need to kind of fix it, versus be a lot more proactive and just avoid that unnecessary downtime, unplanned downtime.
And what's fun with those ops, especially that log stuff, is some of the stuff, it just doesn't properly fail. It's like half broken. And then you're like, well, we needed to throw more servers at it. And it's like, oh, well, there really was a storage performance problem, or there was a networking problem. There was something. And in some cases, people have brute forced problems that were indicative and problematic in their environment. I talked to a customer recently. They went from 80% to 20% CPU utilization by just fixing their storage environment. And getting that ops tooling and getting that logging going, and having that, being able to use the ML capabilities to rapidly find that stuff that you would have, blindly control F or grepped for in the past, or just had been problems for years. They're able to find that really quickly. It's a powerful story as part as we kind of enter this. I feel like it's like a moon cycle or something. Every 3 or 4 years, there's a super cycle of hardware refresh, and I feel like we're walking into that right now with a lot of what kind of estate people have out there.
And that last bit that you were mentioning is covered in some of the capabilities from ARIOps, right? The capacity planning, all of those scenarios, being able to reclaim the reclamation workflows, able to do the what if scenarios. And I think I will speak a little later, but there's a way for you to control what metrics you can use for then determining and being able to run those what if scenarios from a planning perspective. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, as you mentioned, Harshad, there's been several, you did a great job of setting the stage for us, Himanshu, just talking about the key areas that vSphere Foundation covers. And I know that these are some of the key outcomes that vSphere Foundation addresses, boosting operational efficiency, accelerating innovation, elevating security, and supercharging workload performance. But Harshad, I would love to maybe cherry pick a few of these new enhancements in 5.2 and walk through those. Which ones stick out to you?
Definitely. Yeah. So again, continuing with the operational efficiency story, right? One of the differentiators for vSphere Foundation is that operational capability. So if you go back to that slide, just quickly on that, the first thing that we mentioned, there is a unified console. It's not a new console. It's a better holistic experience that we are delivering with that console. But what's really important for us is that vSphere Foundation, as it came out in December, was kind of a sum of parts, right? We talk about it, it's in terms of its components. vSphere 8 update 3 is one portion of it. ARIA Ops logs is one. And what happened there was that some of the capabilities that we want to expose, the lifecycle management, global inventory, being able to manage all of your licenses at one place, centralizing certificate man, all of these capabilities were there in the products, but they were not in one place. Now with this new console experience, everything is in one place. You have that experience has truly become, one product. We are not sum of parts. We are one whole product. Everything can be done at one place. Some of the capabilities I refer to are in the security bucket, from an identity access control perspective, which is the single sign-on, right? The BVF today is still three components, right? But if you do sign in with on vSphere, you are logged into all of the capabilities that are also exposed by ARIA-Ops. Going to the licensing and the unified licensing, I think we have done a great job in making sure that licenses can be monitored across your different vCenter instances in one place. Then you can also get the license usage historical view of that license consumption.
Oh, nice.
From a planning perspective, right? So that becomes, and actually on that console you can actually chart your license usage, so you can see how you're utilizing your licenses and resources properly.
Oh, I haven't seen
management.
that. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yeah.
demo
I'm
on
going to
that?
yell at Pete. He's still using a bunch of licenses. He promised me he was decommissioning those servers too.
Yeah, no, that view is definitely there. I don't think I have a screenshot in the blog, but yeah, we should probably highlight that a little more,
Yeah.
probably in subsequent ones. The other piece again was diagnostics, right? We talked about some of the things, benefits that you get from a troubleshooting perspective, like the core capabilities themselves, right? From whether it's in vCenter, but also in ARIA-Ops, the predictive analytics and troubleshooting that Himanshu mentioned, that was already there. But the diagnostics capabilities were there in vCenter, it was in Skyline, it was in ARIA-Ops, and all of that is now again consolidated and exposed in that the console. So for an IT admin, via admin, they can look at all of the diagnostic information right there. Something that's not on that slide but related to troubleshooting is there are intelligent alerts capabilities that have been added, to address alert storms. If we have a lot of alerts coming in, well, the AI portion of it looks at all of those, clusters them together, and only bubbles up the ones that the IT admin has to immediately look at. So, the diagnostics capabilities, the alerts capabilities helps for faster troubleshooting. Again, exposed all the way through that unified console. So that console experience is really key and a new thing that we want to emphasize in VVF on that front.
Yeah, that's something that's always been a big thing with the notifications, especially as an administrator. There's a million different errors, and sometimes you can kind of get like numb to them, right? Like if you see the same errors all the time, it's like, this is not that important, or the ones that are the most important, get kind of buried, right? So I love the idea. I think vCent did that a little while back as well, but like taking it and analyzing and bubbling up the ones that are the most important, grouping them to the ones that have dependencies that are all related, just making the administrator's ability to get to root cause quicker is just invaluable.
Absolutely. So that's one main feature in 5.2. The second one, and I know that many folks here are already experts on it, but live patching, right? ESXi live patching.
Yeah,
that's an important feature that I guess customers have been waiting for a long time, right? Back in 8U2, we introduced reduced downtime for vCenter, and we also introduced pre-staging of ESXi images, configuration profiles, all with the view of making that upgrade cycle faster, parallelizing things, and then make across vCenter as well as the instances themselves. But now this takes it a step further, right? From a live patching perspective, those VMs can be it's called a fast suspend resume, so that there is no downtime essentially. So you, without reboot or without host evacuation, you can perform your upgrades, and it's not reduction of time of the downtime, right? It's no downtime in those scenarios. So it's a huge benefit.
So I have a complaint that I want to lodge tied to this feature, because I inevitably know everyone in marketing is going to say this saves you money and labor or something.
Yes.
It doesn't, because you're still going to have the same people on call for the patch, whatever. What it saves you as having been in ops is, okay, my change window now, instead of having to like sit there and babysit the patching on all the hosts and evacuate, lots of RAM on probably too slow a network because someone undersized it and wasting hours of my life. Now instead, I get to go to dinner with my kids instead of staring at an ops screen, which I think is way more valuable than trying to like create a labor cost and put it into a modeler, which I know we're going to do, and everyone always does inevitably when you talk about saved ops time. But no, this is like saving your sanity, and this is saving time with family, which I don't know, maybe that's $1 million an hour. We'll have to put a cost on it, but
No, it's definitely yeah, like you rightly said, it's not the panacea, but yes, you don't have to look at the screen all the time and figure out what is been migrated over, what's updated or not.
and
It
it's
does
just going to go through so much quicker. Like that whole process it's just going to speed up. It'll speed up those patch cycles where you can use it, 10, 20x or something in some cases, I'm sure. So
I mean,
yeah.
years ago, I found it amazing that we could even just do a traditional, like offloading VMs without disrupting the workloads, and then patching a host and rebooting it. I mean, even that is like almost magic
But the
if
best
you compare
vMotion
it.
is the vMotion you don't have to do, Pete. And so
Exactly.
if we don't have the vMotion to patch hosts, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I used to sometimes just, kick it all off, tell DRS to sort it out, and go to lunch and yell YOLO in the data center loudly and hope it went through, which generally it did. But, some people, I get it, really important VMs, people die if they go down, they demand eyes on glass. And for those people, this is going to be a huge, time saver.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we all know both planned and unplanned downtimes happen in the data center only at Saturday 3 a.m. So this is really going to help everybody.
I always love it. People are like, we need the patch cycle to be at 3 a.m. I'm like, but that means you want me awake at 3 a.m. No, back.
Back in the day, I used to work for another big IT company based out of Singapore, and I was running this data center project, and inevitably I would get that pager would go off, and I'm like in some club or whatever. I'm not fully drunk, and like I'm in no condition to do anything. Like I'm not gonna help here, but I do have to go
3
there.
a.m. is like middle of REM. You're waking up and you're like, why do we have an office in Thailand? Like Thai people are amazing, but I have immense hatred for their existence in that time zone right now. No,
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, listen, anytime you don't have to reboot a host is a good day, because obviously a lot of times it's going to be totally fine, but not having to push things off and being able to patch them live. Yeah, this is something that I know VMware customers have been asking for a long time, so it's pretty exciting to see it actually out there on an announcement block.
Absolutely. I will point out a couple more features.
Yeah, sure.
So from a DevOps perspective, right? And a few minutes ago we spoke about what are the how do you identify what are the target customers for you, and we talked about hardware refresh cycles. But the other types of customers are the ones who are looking for I call it unified management of both VMs, containers, and Kubernetes clusters, right? Kubernetes is the way as far as microservices architecture based applications and workloads. So to make things easier for those types of customers, and they are DevOps teams, they are IT admins teams who are trying to push services to them. For all of those, self-service infrastructure becomes key, and that's where a lot of emphasis has been put in vSphere through the work that was done with vSphere with Tanzu. Now we are kind of taking it to the next level with the IaaS control plane, and you'll hear this term quite a bit being in our blogs and all of our language. The IaaS control plane is essentially your way for DevOps and consumers, we're calling them, to be able to get access to those infrastructure services. Mainly three kinds, right? The VM services themselves for VM management, lifecycle, all of that. Supervisor services for storage, networking, and so on. But more importantly, and what's new in this release, is the TKG service is an independent TKG service so you can really get your Kubernetes next Kubernetes version and consume them without having to wait for your next vSphere update, right? There is decoupling of those capabilities from vSphere, so you can get access to those very quickly. Like for example, vSphere 8 update 2 to update 3 is 1 year, and there are multiple Kubernetes releases already delivered between that time frame. So now you can really leverage those and be able to get access to them quickly. So that's one big feature from independent TKG service. And then also, and more importantly for VVF, is that you can access these services through the local consumption interface. Again, you will see this a lot, LCI, or local consumption interface. What was in vSphere as cloud console interface, CCI, went to cloud foundation, right? The cloud console, being able to look at all of these services and provision them across your entire deployment. Now you can do that same thing, and that UI had actually disappeared, right, from vSphere. So that same vCenter like UI is available in VVF. That's LCI, local consumption interface. And you can get access to these through that interface. So very big capabilities from a VVF perspective, being able to get that not just through CLI and commands, but now having that exposed to the UI. So I think those are very important features from a DevOps type of scenarios perspective.
Something I want to add on that, actually, I think Harshad said something about, like, things behaving as one product versus a bunch of components together. And one example of this is this idea of LCI and then also CCI, right? So in the context of vSphere Foundation, you've got kind of the LCI interface, being now created as part of kind of vCenter, and giving you that access to self-service access to infrastructure services and everything as through the IaaS control plane. In the context of VMware Cloud Foundation, now you get these capabilities, but because now you also have the VCF automation, formerly called vRealize automation, those the vSphere piece and that coming to now give you the whole CCI and a full IaaS consumption service, that now you can actually basically deploy anything from your global catalog, application blueprints, all sorts of things, in addition to some of these services that we're talking about in the context of VBF. So as we continue to go forward, like with every release, we're making sure that we're really bringing these components together, and making sure that both VCF and VVF are behaving as a single product versus components and a bundle, for example. So customers are going to be, I think, very happy with the experience and how that's improving very quickly.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think when Hawk10 did the announcement, the acquisition internally, that was that was definitely some of the early calls to to us as a group, is to let's make this all work tightly together and be fully integrated. And that's been the key mission at VMware, is obviously creating this whole solution where everything works together. And so that makes perfect sense.
Your teams, one product. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll spend a couple of minutes on the last two features in workload performance domain, right? So vGPU profiles. I didn't put a lot of detail on this slide, but we introduced heterogeneous vGPU profiles back a year ago, being able to share GPU profiles for VDI workloads and other workloads. Taken that a next step further is being able to do that for profiles of different sizes, so that ability to share those GPU resources becomes that much better. And John, I think, referred to DRS, right? But so now vGPU aware DRS is another capability that's added in. So the combination of those two, again, from squeezing the most out of your GPU resources and increasing performance in that sense, is one of the features being delivered. And
so
the other one is about,
before you get to the other one, let me cut you off. So the vGPU with DRS. So if I got if I have a workload that needs these resources, I can actually move these virtual GPUs to other hosts, or to assign them to other, because I know these, obviously they're virtual. That's the V, right? vGPUs. They're tied to all these physical resources, but in the same fashion, if there's some folks that need these, I can move these GPUs to other hosts. Is that how it works?
That's you said it.
Okay. Cool.
We can have vGPUs aligned to different types of application profiles, and at the same time, they can be of different sizes as well. So I think that gives a lot more flexibility for DRS and to be able to really load balance and
kind of this previously in VDI land, you might have been like, well, I've got some power users and some non-power users. But previously, you'd have to build separate clusters or things. But the other thing also, if you think about it from an AI basis, I might have some models that have need a much smaller working set, and I'm not needing to use a whole card or a whole subset of the card. but I also have some bigger chunks that are working at the same time. As people kind of go from crawl to run within, I think, AI, you're going to see cases toward, instead of just a cluster host be a homogeneous workload, we're starting to see mixed use cases for some shared environments.
And that's the idea, right? Being able to provide these capabilities now versus which is like almost like ahead of the adoption curve, basically, right? So we're starting to see kind of these things coming in. We're making sure that vSphere is supporting that, and as customers kind of evolve their use cases, they'll see that hey, their platform or the vSphere Foundation offering already supports all that. So that's kind of the idea of making sure that we are listening to customers, but also making sure that we're looking at where the market's going and being able to provide all those capabilities in vSphere now versus later.
I like it. I like it. Well, there are a lot of features in this vSphere Foundation 5.2, and a lot of those can also be found in vSphere 8 Update 3, the ones tied to vSphere, of course. John and I are going to be doing a deeper dive on vSphere features coming soon, but we're running close on time. I don't want to lose all the time. Gentlemen, is there anything else about this release that we want to talk about before we take off?
We've announced the release. The bits are going to be available soon. So for the vSphere stuff, of course, the bits have gone IA. So that's the format we've been using with core vSphere. It's initial availability, and then we can declare general availability afterwards. So customers can definitely download the IA bits from the vSphere perspective, but the overall release is gonna go GA very shortly as well. So this is kind of the announcement, and some of those bits are available. I think the ops stuff is going to be available soon as well.
Oh, okay. Nice. And I mentioned earlier that the place to go for all of the announcement blogs and all of the technical information is going to be on blogs.vmware.com/Cloud Foundation. So be sure to check that out as well. I know there's a pretty active YouTube page as well for the vSphere team, and so demos galore there as well. Harshad, Himanshu, thank you so much for joining Virtually Speaking. Any closing thoughts?
I'll defer to Himanshu.
All right. So the only closing thought I will say is, folks who've not looked at vSphere Foundation yet, look, if you're running a vSphere environment or naked vSphere environment that has 50, 60 VMs or more, you really need to be, have a reason not to go to vSphere Foundation. It just gives, pays dividends very, very quickly. Customers see significant value in terms of not just like reclamation of resources, but also kind of forward looking, being able to manage your capacity and being able to solve things faster as well. So there's a vast majority of folks who are running, for example, just like vSphere Enterprise Plus. So I would just say take a long hard look on vSphere Foundation. You'll find very quickly that there are significant reasons why you need to move on to vSphere Foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's going to be sessions galore at VMware Explore on vSphere Foundation. John and I are also doing a session. We're doing a session on Home Labs. So take a look at that one as well. Adventures in Home Labs is the name of the session. I also, by the way, am doing a session on demystifying GPUs and DPUs. So that's going to be fun. Looking forward to presenting on that. Gents, thank you so much for joining us on Virtually Speaking. I know you guys are busy. I know it's launch time, and you guys, heck, I know Himanshu just got back from PTO, so he's probably jet lagged. So I really appreciate you taking time to chat with us, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so much for having us. It was wonderful. Thanks, guys.